Coffee is for leaders.
I think they're wonderful tools, but you have to understand that they are tools, not magic. And you have to use, like any tool, you have to use it appropriately. If you try to use a chainsaw to, nail a hammer and a nail, it's not going to work. So you've got to use it the right way, and you've got to use it for the right job.
Philip, thank you so much for coming on the show. You are the CEO of Bloomfire. You've had an impressive career even before that in a lot of different roles. You were a VP at Google, for example. You've been at Crux Informatics. You were the CEO of that. You've had some incredible roles, and now you're at Bloomfire and you're in Montana. So give us a sense for what Bloomfire does, how you got there, and I'll follow up with a question on Montana.
Okay, terrific. So Bloomfire has been for a number of years a leader in the knowledge management and enterprise search space. And it's used by, large and small companies, including a bunch of name brands and then kind of across the spectrum, to manage their knowledge and get the most out of their corporate knowledge. And we're industry agnostic, and we serve customers across a very wide range of industries. You name an industry, and we've got customers in it, because we solve really, very core corporate needs that are common for any kind of business. As I say, the company's been around for a while and is considered a leader in the space, and regularly has won and continues to win. We just won 2 awards recently, industry awards, as recognized as a leader. I got involved, as you say, I'm based in Montana. I grew up on this ranch where I now live. Lived in New York for many years, and then came home about 3.5 years ago full time and live here. And I've been involved with a number of different things, and including working with a bunch of enterprise software companies or enterprise IT, generally speaking. And through that work, I got introduced to Bloomfire and was invited to join the board last fall. I think I started in October. We were having discussions, over the whole course of the last year, and I did formally join the board last fall. And then early this year, my role on the board was to be the independent board member, so not part of the investor group and not part of management, and also specifically to think about where the strategy for the firm goes in the next chapter. It's a successful, growing, profitable firm, doing very well, but the thinking was, hey, what does the next chapter look like? And a lot's changing in the world with the advent of AI, obviously. I'm sure we'll talk about that, and just changing customer expectations, changing market conditions. You always have to keep evolving. And so I was tasked to think about our, strategy for the next chapter. And I also think about company lives in terms of chapters. And it felt to the folks inside the firm, just at the time that I joined the board, that it was time to kind of think about where we go for this next chapter, or how many years. And so I spent a bunch of time really looking at the space, and came up with this idea of enterprise intelligence as the natural convergence and evolution of knowledge management and enterprise search, which we were in both of those already, plus business intelligence. And I realized the commonality of these things. They may look different, but they're all about helping companies query their corporate knowledge and get the most out of their corporate knowledge. And there's no reason for them to be separate. It's just historical. And so they could really come together. So I did a whole bunch of work, research, talked to a lot of folks, and put together this concept and a set of principles to drive enterprise intelligence. And I presented it as sort of the conceptual flag in the sand for Bloomfire to go after and really execute against for this upcoming chapter. And then an opportunity early in the year came up for me to take over the CEO role, and the board asked if I'd be willing to do that. And after some soul searching, I agreed to do so. I think it's a wonderful company filled with wonderful people. It's in a really exciting space, much needed by every business on the planet. It's extremely common set of needs. And so I was really excited about that scale and about this strategic direction and being able to really flesh out enterprise intelligence, not just as a strategy, but then also to be the one driving it in reality. So those were the drivers, and it's been terrific. I've been in the seat for about 4 months, and obviously gotten to know the team very well, and gotten to know many of our customers, and it's an exciting journey.
How has AI accelerated Bloomfire? It seems like what you do with the data collection and the way you can, kind of offer, here's all these insights into your business and stuff. Seems like AI just, superpowers that, right?
Oh, it does. Absolutely. So AI has had an impact in the industry generally. At the very least, a lot of people talking about it and running around and trying to do a lot of experiments and get their arms around what it means and what it's going to mean for the future of work, for employment, for skills in the future, what's possible, productivity, et cetera. Definitely in our space where we're taking knowledge and surfacing insights based on that knowledge, it's directly applicable. Because it's fundamentally an insight engine that sits on top of knowledge, on top of data or content of some kind. And so, we recognized, and before my time, the firm recognized that AI was really a powerful additive capability to what we were doing, and quickly moved to adopt it and build AI capabilities into the product. So, previously it was very much about managing, curating content, authoring content, and then searching through the content. And with AI, we have, in addition to all of that, also the ability to talk to your content and ask a question, not necessarily just get back a document or a set of documents that match, but the actual answer. So, we have that in Bloomfire, and we've had that for a while, and we continue to make that better and better. And we're very excited about all kinds of ways that we might be able to use AI in novel, very practical. We're very grounded about AI, not breathless about it, but we understand deeply what it is. And I have a pretty deep background in AI myself. It's what I studied in college almost 40 years ago, believe it or not. And so we think there's all kinds of applications, certainly for surfacing insights, both reactive, customer asking a question, and proactive to say, hey, given what you do and given the kinds of things you're interested in, here's some information or here's an insight that may be relevant to you. So we think that proactive aspect is under leveraged in the market today, and much needed. The unknown unknowns are as important as the known unknowns. If I can even borrow that.
Yeah. I think that might have been like a Dick Cheney quote. That was cool.
Yeah, or Donald Rumsfeld, or yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a great. That's actually a more coherent way to use it than he did, if I remember right.
Yeah, and then we also think, look, AI can be used not just for insights, but also, like, we have a big focus on cleaning data and having a self-healing knowledge base, and we think we can use AI, very specialized models, to go after specialized kinds of tasks, like identifying. We're already starting to do some of this. Identifying when you have documents in your knowledge base maybe that are really redundant, that are 90% overlap and should be brought together. The best of both should be brought together. Or when two documents directly conflict each other semantically. It's very hard to do if you don't use AI to understand what the documents understand in some sense, what the documents are saying, be able to semantically look at, oh, these are saying the same thing, or, oh, these are saying the opposite things, or these are saying different things, and that's fine. They're complementary. So we think there's a lot of opportunity to be using AI models and really kind of a collection of models that are very specialized to do all kinds of tasks, all collaborating all collaborating together.
As you think about AI and having studied it, where do you think we're going here? I mean, you got all these doomsdayers, you've got people who think it's going to be the greatest thing ever, and then you've got like it seems like the practical application, at least currently, is what you're doing with it, which is really kind of fine tuning it and having it do very specific and power very specific like tasks. Where are we at here? What's going to happen?
So I think it's early days is what I think. And that's the easy answer, but I really believe that. And I think some of the evidence we see of that is that we're pretty early and up on the peak of inflated expectations in the classic hype cycle. And a lot of folks are jumping on it and saying, oh my gosh, AI is the future. And there's a lot of prognostication, obviously, in the industry about, oh my God, AI changes everything, or oh my God, everyone's going to be unemployed, or all these sort of, I don't know, they're doomsayers or just people, melodramatic, let's say, interpretation. And I think, but my belief is nobody really knows. It's too early, and we see, and some very specific evidence we see is all kinds of companies have been rushing out, understandably, to do a lot of experiments and figure out AI and hire people who know what they're doing with AI to try to understand. Nobody wants to get left behind, and people, I think, see the promise in some conceptual sense. They understand it's valuable if they can figure out how to use it. Yet, and you've probably seen some of these headlines, the huge percentage of these projects are being abandoned. And some of that is fine. It's early days, people are doing experimentation. And, when you experiment, you expect to abandon a bunch of experiments and kind of move forward with the things that are working. But I think a number of firms have been kind of surprised from what I've read and what I've heard in the industry by, how not magical it's turned out to be. And so I think we're still in a phase of there's a huge amount of promise, and people are starting to figure out some areas where it's very useful. We certainly do within Bloomfire. I use AI models every day to help me in various ways. I think they're wonderful tools, but you have to understand that they are tools, not magic. And you have to use, like any tool, you have to use it appropriately. If you try to use a chainsaw to, nail a hammer and a nail, it's not going to work. So you've got to use it the right way, and you've got to use it for the right job. So I think companies are starting to come to grips with that, and they've had some issue of understanding that AI has a tremendous amount of potential and can do a lot of things, but there's been, from what I understand, some struggle to really connect the capabilities with the use cases, with the value. Like, where is it actually useful? Where is it really valuable? And because it doesn't determine that for you on its own. You have to, again, it's a tool. You have to use it for something. And I think some firms are still casting around to figure out, okay, where is it useful? And the other is just getting the basics right. And again, it's a tool, not magic. So you have to use it in appropriate ways. And a big part of what we're focused on at Bloomfire is accepting and understanding that AI is only useful on top of some kind of content base. It is fundamentally, these tools, even generative AI, are statistical analysis tools. They're very, very complex and very sophisticated, really amazing. They're amazing, but they are statistical analysis tools. They take big piles of training data and context data, and they look at statistical relationships between the elements in that. And then based on what you're asking, they give you an answer, some kind of insight that's based on statistical relationships. And while the answer may be novel, it is based on this content. And so the content has to be good. A model with no content doesn't do a thing. It does zero. So, this is a big focus for us, saying you have to connect to all your content. If you have it just operate on this little bit or this little bit or this little bit, you're gonna be missing the full value or miss the whole story. And if you don't clean, as we were talking about previously, if you don't clean up that data, make sure it's not conflicting, make sure it's, kind of consistent and harmonious and doesn't have holes or things in it, you're going to get unreliable outputs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
back to your question, I think companies are struggling because they haven't taken that piece of it seriously enough. And, there's a lot of folks saying, oh, wow, we got a giant data mess. Let's just throw AI on top of it and that'll solve it. And it doesn't. It doesn't. Garbage in, garbage out has been true of computer science since the very beginning, because computer science fundamentally is all about processing data and performing some kind of calculations on top of data. And AI is exactly the same. It's not different from everything that's come before at that very high conceptual level of anything else in computer science. And so garbage out, garbage in, garbage out is as true now as it's ever been. AI does not change that. And in fact, it may be more pernicious because these AI models sound so credible. No matter what you feed into them, they come back with a very convincing and very confident answer. And, you may not spot the problem. If you look at a chart, and you've got spikes or discontinuities in your chart, let's say you're looking at a typical like business intelligence dashboard, you say, ooh, I see the data is messy. Like my chart goes like this, and then it goes like this, and then it goes like this. Like something's going on. It's worth a look. But if you ask an AI model that's sitting on top of really messy content, it comes back with a really good sounding answer because that's what they're all about. And it won't be obvious to you that there's something wrong underneath unless you really dig. So that makes it even more important than ever to make sure that what you're feeding into it is clean. It's going to be even harder to spot later. So just saying, oh, we'll just throw an AI model on top of our mess, we believe is not a good solution. And it just won't get you very far, and you'll run into problems. And we hear customers say, yeah, we did this thing, we used this vendor, or we built this thing in-house, and we're getting hallucinations and we don't know what's right, or we can't trust it. We have to check everything, and it's more effort than if we just done it ourselves. And so there's a little bit of that, the trough of disillusionment starting to appear, at least in some ways, in the hype cycle, because of some of those early findings. But it's just a question of using it in the right way and having the right set of expectations, like anything else.
What does a typical day look like for you as CEO of Bloomfire, and as you kind of, and you're still new to the role and all that type of stuff, but give us a sense for what your day looks like.
It varies a lot, depending on, the needs of the day. I work from home for the most part, my office on the ranch. I like Jeff Bezos, I believe in having, a good, getting up early and then having some putter around time first thing in the morning. I don't know if you read that, Jeff. Mm-hmm. Jeff loves to spend an hour in the morning just puttering around and doing things. And I do think that is helpful. Get ready for the day. I will often just sort of work on a few different things. And I love to exercise pretty much every morning. And so that's important part of my life. And then, my day just will have a variety of different things. Obviously, we've got internal meetings. I'm talking to customers. I'm talking to, folks like industry experts like yourself in different ways. I spend a bunch of time thinking, analyzing, reading. I think that's very important to be continually curious and trying to absorb new things. I've been using, back to the previous question, I do use AI to help me do research, particularly initial, like, oh, go tell me what's going on over here, and then I can dive into things. It's very useful for that. I live on a ranch, so sometimes I got to go out and feed the horses, or do things, and I very much enjoy having my day a little bit. It can get a little crazy sometimes, but just time wise. But I enjoy having a few different things.
Yeah, living on a ranch as a CEO is a great escape. I mean, you're like, in business all the time. Then you get to go out in nature, feed the horses, maybe get some fly fishing in. I don't know if you fly fish. You should if you're in
I
Montana.
do. I fly fish, and we've got a beautiful trout stream just right next to the house. Well, I can very easily grab my rod, jump out there, fish for 20 minutes and come back in. That's a doable thing.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, you have the perfect setup for that. Give us a sense for Montana, how it's grown as a tech ecosystem, how it's growing as a state just in general, and where is it? I mean, I don't think a lot of people think of like Montana Tech Hub, and you probably don't want them to, right?
It's a two-edged sword. And so the tech ecosystem in Montana is very much alive and well, and it's been growing fast. And as you know, Clint, I'm the chair of our main nonprofit for encouraging the tech industry in Montana. I've been on that board for years. Yet another thing I do, and I'm currently chair. It's called Scaling Montana, and we engage, encourage, educate, and connect basically people in the tech industry here. And we do a variety of different things. We have a monthly speaker series. We do an annual summit. We do mentorship for startups, Montana-based startups, and we do a lot of connecting of different people, kind of resources around the state. And we have a mix here of a bunch of startups, earlier stage. Some of them are starting to get pretty further along. A few really great success stories of Montana-based technology companies, and then larger companies increasingly have a presence here. So when I first moved back to Montana 3.5 years ago, I was working for Google at the time, and I was working here remotely for Google, and all the major tech companies have some presence, either with an office or a handful of, or more than a handful of remote employees. So increasingly, we're seeing this presence, and the great thing about that is, like any ecosystem, it's that set of connections between all the people. And you meet like-minded people in the bar, or there's a meetup, or there's a conference, or whatever, and when you share ideas, you collaborate, you encourage each other, you egg each other on, so to speak, you inspire each other. And all of that is really good for the tech ecosystem. So we're seeing that. I would say it's early-ish days in Montana, but not super early. We're getting there. And we have we've got a lot of software here. We also have a very strong focus on photonics and quantum computing here. We have one of only two full quantum test beds in the country. One of them is located here. A lot of that is coming out of work being done at Montana State University, where there's a lot of really neat, particularly in material sciences and physics, and a lot of that more hardware oriented, but obviously has a huge impact on software. So there's some really, really neat stuff. To your question about, do we want to encourage it or not? We certainly want to encourage economic growth in the state, and that's part of my mission is to help the state and give back. I'm also on the board of a public policy think tank here called the Wheeler Center, as part of that same sort of mission of wanting to help the state. We're kind of divided here between even within individuals, not just the population divided, but people kind of flip back and forth between, we want more people to fuel growth. No, put up, block the border. Don't let anybody move to Montana. All these people from other states coming here. It's, I think we've been a growing state, obviously, from day one, as, the whole West, the whole country has been. And that continues. And it seems to be fairly healthy. And people bring people bring, different ideas, different experiences, that sort of diversity of perspective, et cetera, which is good. And that's healthy for the community and the ecosystem. But I also find very encouragingly that people who move here from other states want to be Montanans, and they want to fit in, and they want the sort of the geniality of Montanans are just very nice and polite, a little soft-spoken, but very polite. And I find people, even when they come from rather, let's say, more brusque parts of the country come here and just like they want to be, everyone waves to each other on the street, and people are generally quite polite. So I'm very heartened by that. People come here to join the culture, not to try to not to change it.
Yeah, they call it the last best place for a reason, man. It's beautiful up there. It's just
I feel very fortunate to have grown. I grew up here on this ranch, as I mentioned, and have I feel very fortunate to have had that experience, and then extremely fortunate to have the ability to come back and continue to live on the ranch.
How do you think about culture and maintaining culture, particularly as like most days you're working remote? Is the whole team remote?
Yeah. Whole team is remote. We're officially based in Austin, and we have a small office there, but it's just a couple of people are there. We, have been remote for a number of years, and it works very well. And I think honestly, COVID changed my view on all this. For years and years, I was very much an in-office person, and I wanted people in the office. I believed, being up to, next to each other in front of the whiteboard, or having those flyby conversations in the hallway or the micro kitchen or whatever. And I still believe in all that. But I think when COVID happened and all of us, and I was running my fourth startup at that time, all of us had to go home. It opened my eyes to, oh, actually, this can work if you're intentional about it. And of course, what COVID did that made this work is everyone was home. Not some people were home and then most people in the office. That's harder. But when everyone was home, we all kind of, as a society, got to practice it at the same time. We figured out, actually, it works, and people can be very productive. We've seen, there's a lot of stats around that. And there are, a lot of benefits to it. Now, you bring, a very good point to the table about culture, maintaining company culture. I think, one, interestingly, we've had video conferencing for a long time, but it wasn't much used, as you probably know, right before COVID. It was around, and we had Cisco and, a few things for video conferencing. They mostly, like, we'd meet in person or we'd talk on the phone. And even though I had, when I was at Thomson Reuters, I was managing a team of 6,000 people, and they were scattered all over the world, but they were all in offices. So we didn't really think about it, but it was highly distributed. I'm not sure what having 3 people in an office out of a huge team like that is versus working from home. Looking back, I now think that's kind of an academic difference. So I think we were operating more, certainly in larger firms like Thomson Reuters, we were operating a more distributed kind of work style than we realized already. And so we were maybe a little more practiced for work from home than we thought. But interestingly, we had VC capabilities. We used them, but not that much. Mostly people met in person or talked on the phone. And COVID just made it immediately, okay, now everyone's going to use video conferencing. And I think that was a good thing. And I think we've learned how to connect with each other. And video conferencing obviously brings in higher bandwidth communication, not as high, if we're in person, we have the highest bandwidth communication, so to speak. We can hear, we can see, we can get a sense for people. On video conferencing, we can hear and we can see people, at least to an extent, a little bit flattened, but still we can see people and we can pick up their body language. And I think, versus the phone, all we can do is hear them. We don't know, are they rolling their eyes? Are they, drifting off? Are they multitasking? I don't know. So I think the VC innovation has been helpful for companies to connect. And I've had this experience over the last number of years since the beginning of COVID, where I've only talked to somebody over video conferencing and then met them and was sure when I met them live that I had met them before. And they're like, no, we've only seen each other over video conferencing. But which is interesting though. I didn't feel like it was so wild, unless somebody is really tall, then occasionally I'm like, whoa, I've only seen you sitting down, for example. But generally, you get a good sense. Now, I do think it is important for people to get together, and all firms that are distributed like ours, and I know now there are quite a few firms that are highly distributed, and there's some real benefits to it, but you do have to work at it. You need to have and this comes to leadership. is very important to drive that culture across the firm, regardless of whether you're in one place or not. It's a little harder to just pick it up from osmosis. So you have to be a little more intentional about it. But again, that's good leadership. And two, it is important from time to time that people get together and they do meet in small groups or larger groups. And you probably had this experience too. If you meet somebody while you maybe spend 2 days at an offsite or something together and you get to know them in the flesh, then when you go back to interacting over video conferencing, it's already a richer experience because you know them, you know what they're like. You kind of have a more multi-dimensional sense of that person. So you don't have to be together all the time. But you have to spend some time with each other. You have to get to know each other, and you will take that back, and that will live on. That's like an ongoing asset, so to speak. There are certain things, when it's great, like an offsite, like offsites that have always been, even all being in the office isn't super productive. Like, let's all go somewhere. Let's all lock ourselves in a room away from all the distractions of the office and just focus on a thing, coming up with a new strategy or designing a product or whatever it is, or doing a bunch of exercises to just work together better as a team. And so I think all of those are still, really important.
Yeah. How do you think about the economic outlook of the year? Like for the rest of the year, how's software doing? How's tech doing? SaaS? Like what's your sense for things?
So I think, I'd say uncertainty is the watchword. The first part of the year we saw it, and the whole industry saw it. Just tremendous economic uncertainty. And I think, potentially some, governmental policies around the economic direction of the of the country and of the world, frankly, to some extent, had people unsure about where things are going. It could be amazing. It could be terrible. It could be something in between, not known. I think as time has gone on, we've seen, and others, again, we see it ourselves when talking to our customers, and we see it in the headlines and talking to other firms, other enterprise SaaS companies, that some of that uncertainty, at least some of the fear aspect of the uncertainty, has gone down. So I think there's still uncertainty, but people are a little less trepidatious about the uncertainty. They're like, okay, we can roll with the uncertainty. I feel like that has definitely happened. And so I think the outlook for the back half of the year has improved generally. And I think a lot of it has to do with this. Okay, people are just feeling okay about rolling with the uncertainty, and the sky isn't falling, and like we can deal with things. I do think there are other areas of uncertainty. So there's sort of general economic uncertainty. I think there's a lot of, again, prognostication, and some of it's fairly melodramatic, some of it incendiary about, it's the end of SaaS, but I don't see that at all. Certainly, it's not the end of enterprise technology. And things take different forms. Things evolve over time. I haven't seen any reason why SaaS, which is a very broad category, really changes in the short term, and certainly the fundamental need isn't there for something really different. Customer expectations constantly evolve, enabling technologies constantly evolve and allow for new things like AI. But again, back to our earlier part of the conversation, I don't think people really fully understand yet how AI exactly is going to help their business. Yes, here and there, and a lot of firms are using it for very specific things. But I think the larger scale cataclysmic kind of changes, not sure. That they may not happen. They may take far longer to sort of happen. They may happen in a more slow evolution than in sort of a cliffy way than some of the, prognosticators have been prophesying. So we'll see. And I think that's another area of uncertainty is, okay, what is the, not just the economic situation going to look like, but what is what's the future of software look like? How do we best serve our customers? And I think there are all kinds of forces going on at the moment, and including different business models and kind of different ways to look at things and to delight customers. And there's not yet a truly clear, confident direction. There's still a lot of exploration, a lot of speculation and discussion and debate going on in the industry. So those levels of uncertainty are in the background, but I don't think they're really affecting most people's. They may be affecting some, but I think most businesses are not yet really directly affected by that level of sort of uncertainty. Compared to the economic uncertainty was much more sharp, but that again seems to be receding a little, at least a bit. Hopefully economic uncertainty continues to recede.
Finally, we end every interview with the same question, and that is at CEO.com. We believe the chances one gives is just as important as the chances one takes. When you hear that, who gave you a chance to get you to where you are today?
Oh, I mean, so many people. Certainly my I would say probably most fundamentally, and this is, maybe it's probably a common answer. My family was extremely supportive, loving family. Again, I'm just sheer lucky. I can take no credit for it. And they're very supportive, taught me a lot. And growing up on a ranch taught me a lot about, making things happen and being responsible. A ranch is basically a collection of little family businesses, and different parts of the family would do things. So, my folks would have the cattle business and the horse breeding operation. My sister ran the egg chicken business. I ran the pig business. We had all these different things. Obviously, we all worked together, but we had areas of responsibility that we were responsible for. My parents were very clear that we were responsible. We had to do the record keeping. We, financially, we paid for, the cost of feed and made money from that business. And so we understood what kind of running a little business felt like, and then learned all kinds of amazing things, and had a great, education. My folks sent me off to Harvard and allowed that, enabled that to happen at multiple levels, and I'm forever grateful. So I think fundamentally, I'd say, my parents, you can say, well, helping your child out isn't really taking a chance, but you're always hoping for the best, and you're giving people, a chance at success. So I think that's foundational. But I will add, I don't want to, the waters, but I will add that, so many people in my life, folks who've hired me, investors who've backed me, employees who've joined teams, they've all taken real risks, and they may not have known me very well at the time, but they backed me and allowed me to do something successful that allowed me to give back, but that allowed me to grow, and I'm forever grateful, and I approach every day with gratitude about that.
That's incredible. Philip, thank you so much for coming on. Congratulations on everything. Good luck up there in Montana. I'm sure we'll be talking to you about some of the things you're doing there, since we're neighbors, and best of luck.
Absolutely. Thank you, Clint. Really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks, my friend.